Can I glow like an influencer using statistics? Makeup edition. I made a board of the first 100 aesthetically pleasing faces I found on Pinterest. And from this board, I took note of common traits, broke those traits down by statistical probability in order to see if I could dissect current beauty trends. To me, meant aesthetic procedures, we've already gone over. 83% had lip filler, shape of a keyhole, which is what I got. 61% had dark, healthy looking hair. It's not highlighted. Its common bang was the middle of the jerf bang, which you can see in this video, but I have done a whole video on that. An entirely different Pinterest board based on all shapes and sizes to dissect body trends. Because of that, I did a 6-week fitness program. Goals to build out my shoulder, thicken my waist, and grow my glutes. Today, we're talking about makeup. Let's get started. I've already done a whole video on eyebrows, eyebrow shape, saying that a whopping 81% influencers had fluffy eyebrows. The first 3/4 of the eyebrow were brushed up, and the rest looked very neat. 61% had big eyebrows, it was the vast majority. Surprisingly, straight eyebrows were by far the most popular eyebrow shape. So let's start there. If you saw the eyebrow video, you know that I've already laminated them. If I hadn't, here's what I would use. Anastasia Beverly Hills Eyebrow Glue. Like in my last eyebrow video, I'm going to take some concealer right here to create the illusion of a very straight brow. Okay, now I'm going over the ends with just a little bit of powder, but not very much. Now I'll be doing hair-like strokes with the NYX eyebrow pen. I'm just going to add strokes to try to create a boy brow in the front. And more neatness at the ends. Okay, so here are our eyebrows. Now let's go on to the base. According to the statistics, 11% had a dewy base, 10% had a matte base, and 71% had a combination of a cloud base. I classify cloud foundation somewhere in between dewy and matte. I see it as more moisturized but not shiny, except for on the places that you want it to be. For that, I'm using e.l.f. Halo Glow, I'm using a fairly light hand. As a steadfast rule, makeup was statistically the most probable, whopping 95%. We are definitely trying to keep this as natural looking as possible. In almost no pictures was concealer actually detectable, so I'm adding the least amount possible to just brighten up the spots on my face that aren't as uniform with the rest. Now it's time for bronzer. The vast majority of influencers their bronzer concentrated on the top part of their forehead and the bottom part of their cheekbones, as well as a little bit on the nose. This is a good example of it. You can see that the top part of her forehead, the darkest part of her face. Here's where it gets interesting. I was expecting most people to have the darkest part of their contour on the higher part of the cheeks, like this. However, I found that the overwhelming majority bronzer more concentrated on the middle part of their cheeks is blended down, create more of a sun-kissed look versus a snatched look. I would like to point out that this board is based off of what I look up on Pinterest. Almost every single person is in the range of my own skin tone, while 47% are women of color that have a skin tone more similar to mine. Let's go in with the bronzer. I'm doing a good amount on my forehead. Then I'm going like this, which is lower than I usually place my bronzer. I'm also putting my bronzer over my nose and right there. Because almost none of the influencers had detectable eyeshadow, just to create a little dimension, I'm going over my eyelids and extending it out. Okay, here we are, and I actually really do like that placement. Let's get on to blush. So 5% of people had blush placement on the apples of their cheeks, 7% had it on their lateral cheeks, 30% had no blush, 38% had sunburnt blush. Here is a good example of that. It essentially follows the cheek and goes up over your nose, like you might get a sunburn if you actually went outside. A little too long. So that's what we're doing. Okay, we're looking sun-kissed and sunburned. We are looking dewy at this point. I'm going to go in with the translucent powder from Cheekbone Beauty. I'm just going to pop that onto a beauty blender and on the places where I want a little less shine. This video is already getting a little long with editing. I am going to have to break it into a part 2. Never do that. Don't be mean to me. So going over eyeliner, mascara, lips, one other common factor surprisingly prevalent in all of the influencers, at least on my feed. Catch you in the next video. I'll post them at the same time, so you just have to click on it and have to wait. Thanks. Bye.